You ever hear a story from someone you trust, someone real, and it sticks with you for life? Not because it's exaggerated or made up, but because it feels real.
Okay, you're setting this up way too creepily. What kind of story are we talking about?
My grandmother told me this one. Not some random legend, not a story passed down through the family. This was her story. Something that happened when she was just a little girl.
Old people love scaring us. What'd she say? Ghosts? A haunted house?
No, worse. She met something that looked human, but wasn't. She grew up in a small village, way out in the countryside. Back then, there weren't many kids around, so she usually played alone. But one day, she met a group of children near the forest's edge.
Okay, already a red flag. Kids hanging around the woods. That never ends well.
Right. But she didn't see it that way. She was just happy to have someone to play with. They were different, though. The way they laughed, the way they moved. Something about them was off.
How off?
She noticed their feet first. They were twisted, turned the wrong way.
What? No.
When she asked about it, one of the girls just giggled and said, "We were made this way, aren't you?"
I'd be running right there.
But she didn't. They were kind, friendly. They played strange games with her, whispered things about the forest, secrets she didn't understand. And every day, they met under the sun, but they always vanished before dusk.
And she thought this was normal.
She was just a kid back then. Kids can't question these things. But then things started happening at night. Footsteps echoed through the halls. Frantic. Doors creaked open on their own. The house grew freezing cold, even in the dead of summer.
This is the part where she stops playing with them, right?
No, she did the opposite. One evening, as the sun was setting, she followed them. She wanted to know where they went after dark.
Why would she do that?
Curiosity. The kind that gets people into trouble. And then she was only 13 or 15 maybe. She chased their ladder into the forest, deeper than she had ever gone before. Then she saw them standing in a circle beneath the trees. Their feet were bare now, clawed. They danced, chanted in a language she didn't understand. In the center of the circle stood a figure. Tall, dark, with glowing red eyes.
Oh, hell no.
One of the children turned to her. She smiled, but her teeth were sharp. Not human. And in the calmest voice, she said, "You shouldn't have come."
She ran, didn't she?
Faster than she ever had. She didn't look back. She never played near the woods again, and the children never came to her house after that.
Damn, what were they?
She didn't know. Not at the time. But years later, she went back to the village. She asked an old man about the woods, about those children. The old man just looked at her and said, "Those weren't children. They were witches. And you were lucky they let you leave."
But what if they didn't?
Well, it seems that sometimes the supernatural doesn't confine itself to the woods. I recently heard a story from a friend. A delivery driver, whose routine route turned into a nightmare one quiet night. And trust me, this one will give you chills.
A delivery driver? That sounds different. But if it's as eerie as your grandma's tales, I'm all ears.
My friend was on what he thought would be an uneventful night shift, delivering one last parcel to a small store on the outskirts of town. The highway was desolate, so quiet that every little sound made him jump.
I can already feel that tension. What happened next?
About 15 minutes from the store, his headlights caught something up ahead. A child, barely 8 or 9 years old, standing on the side of the highway in an oversized white coat. At first, he slowed down, instinctively trying to make sense. Why would a child be out here, alone, at night? But as he got closer, he noticed something off.
Off how? What did he see?
As he got closer, the kid's face appeared distorted, as if the features were drawn by a clumsy hand. It was as though the child was wearing a mask. And the strangest part, the kid didn't even flinch as his truck passed by. He glanced in his rearview mirror immediately, expecting to see the kid following him. Yet nothing was there.
That's disturbing. Did he stop?
No, he did not. His hands were shaking. And though he tried to convince himself, he couldn't shake what he just saw. He thought maybe the light was playing tricks or something.
So, he just kept driving.
Yes. He reached the store, still rattled. The cashier, a man in his 40s, noticed his unease. "You okay?" The cashier asked. Our friend just mumbled, "Yeah, just long night," not wanting to explain what he'd seen.
I can only imagine how that felt. Did anything else happen?
After finishing his delivery, he grabbed a coffee and tried to convince himself it was all in his head. The store was well lit and busy with a few late-night customers, which helped him to get calm and normal. But on his way back, the highway grew even darker. He was nearly halfway home when he spotted a big tree branch lying on the road. It was too big to drive over, so he had to stop. He stepped out to move it. He left the engine and headlights running, and he could not shake the feeling of being watched. That's when his skin crawled.
Crawled. What did he see?
As he approached the branch, every hair on his neck stood up. And then he saw it. The same child, now standing at the side of the road, half hidden in the shadows, staring at him with that distorted face.
No, did he run?
The kid did not move, did not even blink an eye, but stood there looking straight at him in the eye. Frozen in terror, he backed away and jumped back into his truck, locking the doors immediately. With no phone signal, he reversed carefully around the branch and sped back to the store.
That's unreal. So, did he report it?
Yes. Once back at the store, he practically ran inside. The cashier, alarmed, asked him if he was okay. "There is a kid out on the highway," he stammered. It sounded ridiculous, but the cashier helped him call the police. When the police arrived, they explained everything as calmly as he could. They searched the highway for over an hour but found no trace of the kid, and then an officer came and said that they found only a small, decrepit structure. A shed in the woods. He said that he followed the officer and the structure was made of weathered wood and overgrown vines. Inside, there was nothing. A rusted chair, a broken mirror, a few scraps of fabric. No trace of the child. No footprints. No toys, nothing.
It sounds like he was caught between reality and something unexplainable.
Maybe. He does not know. One of the officers asked him if he was sure that he saw a kid. He answered, but his words felt hollow. He got back into his truck and drove home, but the image of that kid's haunting face stayed with him. Whatever he saw that night, he was afraid to take the same route again.
Makes you wonder, are these just stories or warnings? Maybe both. Just remember, when you find yourself on a quiet road at night, keep your eyes open. The unknown might be closer than you ever imagined.
After that unnerving encounter on the highway with that strange kid in the woods, you'd think the road had given up its secrets for the night.
But something tells me that's not the end of it. The highway always seems to have another twist lurking in the dark.
Exactly. Sometimes, just when you think you've seen it all, the road pulls you into an entirely different kind of nightmare. Let me share another story, a call that turned a routine drive into a trap.
I'm all ears.
It was just past midnight on a long delivery shift. I know someone who experienced it firsthand. His usual route was uneventful, until one night everything changed.
What happened this time? What do you mean, changed? Tell me.
So, he was driving home after a long shift. The highway stretched on for miles, with only the glow of his headlights and the dense, dark woods as company. Out of nowhere, his music cut off, and an incoming call flashed on his car's Bluetooth. The number was unfamiliar, so he answered, thinking it might be work-related.
And then?
A woman's trembling voice came through. "Please, I need help. I've had an accident. My car's stuck, and I don't know what to do." She said she'd swerved off the road to avoid hitting an animal and begged him to come back and help. At first, he hesitated. Something about the situation didn't sit right. But when she added, "Please, I think I am in danger that pushed him over the edge. Against his better judgment, he turned around and drove back. She stayed on the line, guiding him with a shaky voice, describing rustling branches and faint footsteps in the darkness. Trying to reassure her, he couldn't shake the creeping unease in his own chest.
So, he decided to go back. That sounds like a terrible idea.
It did. After about 10 minutes, he spotted something alarming, a car hidden in the bushes. The seatbelts were buckled and there were no keys or belongings inside. The front end was crumpled and the driver's door was open. He parked behind it and grabbed his flashlight, calling out, "I'm here." Her voice, barely audible over the Bluetooth, replied, "Thank you, just a little further." He approached the car cautiously and shined his light inside. Then he heard it, a faint rustling behind him. He spun around, flashlight trembling in his hand. Out of the darkness, two figures emerged, faces obscured by hoods, one carrying a crowbar, the other a knife. Before he could react, a third figure slammed something heavy against his back. He fell, the pain searing through him as darkness took over.
That's horrifying! What happened next?
When he regained consciousness, his car was gone, along with his phone, wallet, and everything. He was stranded alone in the dark. Eventually, he flagged down a passing truck and called the police. They combed the area, but found no trace of those attackers. The officer explained that highway robberies using fake distress calls weren't uncommon in these isolated areas.
I can't believe someone would go to such lengths.
He still couldn't shake the conviction that the call was real. The fear in her voice, the desperation. It was a perfect trap. Now, every time he sees an unknown number while driving, he lets it ring. Some risks just aren't worth taking.